weirdo. I don't give no what you got in your head, that neural link. You'll never outthink me.
What if the empire built on loyalty was really held together by secrets? In a world where handshakes look like family and toasts sound like vows, one rumor can blow the roof off the mansion. Because behind the photos, behind the charity checks, behind the mega tours and boardroom smiles, there's a quieter story-making noise in the places where people talk off camera. A story of hidden bloodlines, sealed envelopes, and a friendship that might have been a chess match the whole time. And at the center of it all is a man people call untouchable Jay-Z, a legend who built a billion-dollar platform out of hustle, discipline, and silence. His former brother in the game? The party king who ran the night for 2 decades, Sean Combs. Their alliance looked unbreakable until it wasn't. But the fuse didn't start with them. It started with a 31-year-old who refuses to disappear Ramir Satterthwaite and a mother's affidavit that keeps coming back like a bad dream. If this sounds like the beginning, it isn't. It's the moment the lid finally rattles.
I don't have no felonies. I'm not crazy or none of that. It's like, I just want the truth, and it's so hard to get it from the courts. And it seems like Jay-Z don't want to say anything. So, I don't want to see him go down for something that, you could have just got taken care of. That's it.
Ramir Satterthwaite says he's not chasing a payday. He says he's chasing a test. He's been in and out of courtrooms since he was a teenager, asking for one thing: a DNA swab from Jay-Z. His mother, Wanda Satterthwaite, signed under penalty of perjury that she and Jay-Z had an intimate encounter when she was 16. Ramir was born the following year. She passed a few years ago, but her affidavit didn't. It sits in the public record like a stubborn headline. For years, judges pushed the case aside on technicalities. The filings changed, the attorneys changed. The goal never did. Ramir's new suit says there were games played, addresses that vanished, declarations that didn't match property records, and a defense strategy that treated a paternity test like a nuclear code. Jay-Z's legal camp called it harassment. Ramir called it obstruction. The court didn't toss it. It kept breathing. And every time the case coughed back to life, the internet did too. Because people can ignore a rumor. They can't unsee a document with a mother's name on it.
And what was the story that was told to you as to how your mom had met Jay-Z?
Well, basically, my mom was at a show, and she was with a friend. And, I guess her and her friend stayed to, after the show, he was doing little signings and little autographs and stuff like that. I guess he wasn't too big, but, I guess females, when the show's over, you can sign little autographs and stuff like that, talk to the people who perform. She said she went up there, and with her and her friend, and they start talking, I guess wound up leaving with them. He took them to some apartment building, and they did what they did in there, talked a little bit, had a good time, party, and I guess had sex. I can't fully talk as my mom because I'm not my mom. I'm just telling you guys what she told me. It was just, and I honestly just believe it. It's just no doubt in my mind that I believe it. My mom wouldn't just make something up like that, and it's been no challenge to say that my mom was telling no type of fraud, no type of lie. Nobody ever said anything to me. All right, well, I don't know your mom. I don't know who your mom is. This is a lie. Never got anything. So why wouldn't I believe my mom? We could have been settled this, and it only takes a conversation and some words. I'm not a hateful guy. I don't hate anyone. I'm not after nobody. I'm not trying to see no one downfall. But this is just some things that just went through court, and they just expected me to just sit there and just take what they were saying. I can't do that because you got to have the truth. You got to have proof. You guys are working off of fraud and collusion with different lawyers, like a paternity test, and all this is years later. Fraud and collusion, putting liens on people's houses. Like, why is all this happening? If this is such a lie, or someone is creating a story and they want 15 minutes of fame or whatever you guys want to say it is, but why? I don't have time for this. I work every day. I work hard for my family. Everything I got, I worked hard for it. I will continue to work. I've been through school.
But the story didn't stop with Ramir. It multiplied. The next name didn't arrive with a subpoena. It arrived with a whisper that turned into a pattern. Her friends say she's not chasing cameras. She's dodging them. She goes by Letitia Mayer, and for years, she's told anyone who asked that her family told her the truth early. Her father was a man too famous to claim her. According to two people who once worked around Roc Nation, the company orbiting Jay-Z's empire, Letitia wasn't just surviving. She was allegedly being supported, rent handled, utilities handled. One condition, keep the name off your tongue. If that silence was bought, what needed hiding? Letitia never appeared in the curated family photos. She didn't get pulled into the public narrative. No bedtime story captions, no My Princess posts, just a neat apartment, a steady debit, and a rule. Keep it discreet. And the thing about discreet is it works, until it doesn't. Because the moment an unacknowledged child appears, everyone starts counting. 1 becomes 2. 2 becomes how many more? And when you start counting, you start making connections you wish you didn't. Those connections didn't stop at Jay-Z's front door. They stepped straight into a friend's house. In the industry, some rumors live in green rooms and never leave. This one didn't. Across private chats and closed-door dinners, a theory kept resurfacing, ugly and simple. At least 2 children in Sean Combs' family might not be his biologically. The alleged father, the same man everyone calls the blueprint Jay-Z. The claim wasn't about strangers or mistakes. It was about women who were once part of Diddy's circle. Longtime partners, trusted exes, people who knew the alarm codes and the holiday schedule. Insiders said the overlap wasn't an accident. It was a pattern hiding in plain sight. Publicly, the 2 men toasted each other and pooled money for relief efforts. Privately, tension slipped out in small, slippery moments. A joke with teeth, a nudge that landed too hard. There's a clip from years back, a stage moment that looked like comedy until you knew what to look for. Diddy taps Jay-Z twice. Open palm, a bit too sharp for friendship. The crowd cheers. The cameras love it. But some people in the wings still talk about the look Jay-Z gave him after. The one that said, "Not here." If Diddy suspected betrayal, what would he do? If Jay-Z knew, what would he risk? Those are the questions that turn friendship into shrapnel, but betrayal wasn't the only fuse burning. A lawsuit would set the rest of the room on fire. When the amended complaint surfaced, the timeline got ugly. An anonymous woman alleged that back in the early 2000s, when she was underage, she was assaulted after being given something at an after-event gathering where both Jay-Z and Sean Combs were present. Jay-Z called it a blackmail attempt. Diddy denied everything. The public snapped to attention at one chilling detail. The complaint claimed a well-known female celebrity stood in the room and watched without intervening. No name was printed, no statement ever came. And silence, in cases like this, doesn't sound neutral. It sounds strategic. Industry veterans started connecting old dots in new ways. People remembered the no phones policy at certain hotel suites. The lists, the invites, the rules. You didn't need to see everything to understand what was normal there. The question wasn't just who did what. The question became, who controlled who walked in, who walked out, and who never told a soul? The case didn't prove criminal guilt. It did prove something else, that the glossy narratives crack under paperwork. And once one crack shows, the light spills everywhere it shouldn't. The light fell hardest on a friendship already splitting down the middle. From the late 90s to the last pre-pandemic gala, Jay-Z and Sean Combs looked inseparable. They hopped on each other's records. They spoke unity on stage. They wrote 7-figure checks for disaster relief and said the quiet part out loud, "We're stronger together." The photos traveled faster than the facts. What didn't travel? The gap that opened after federal agents paid Diddy a very public visit. Jay-Z said nothing. No tweet, no phone note essay, no praying for my brother boilerplate, just a clean quiet that looked like distance and felt like a decision. People joked that Jay-Z was hiding. Others said he was calculating. And in the corners, a sharper rumor grew teeth. Jay-Z allegedly knew the storm was coming, pulled himself out of shared ventures months before, rerouted assets, and let the fire burn where it landed. Was he protecting his family, or was he moving pieces on a board only he could see? The industry kept watching, because if you really want to know who holds power, you don't watch the cameras, you watch the exits. Diddy, facing charges that would stain a lifetime of champagne nights, looked around for allies and found air. Whatever was left of brotherhood didn't survive the sirens. But survival is easier when you master one craft better than anyone, staying clean while everyone else gets smoky. If Jay-Z has a reputation, it's precision. He built an empire on paperwork, partnerships, and patience. When stories catch fire around him, they burn out at arm's length. He rarely raises his voice. He rarely explains. Lawyers explain for him. Numbers explain for him. Time explains for him. That's how legends survive. You learn to stand where the water will never reach your shoes. People who used to be close whisper the same line. He knew. Not knew everything, just enough to dodge it. Knew which parties to leave early, which calls to return, which meetings to take off the calendar before they were ever on it. When accusations surfaced, he didn't swing. He stepped back. When chaos hit a friend, he didn't rush to patch it, he let it breathe. That's how you look clean standing next to a spill. But even precision breaks when family gets involved, because a brand can weather a rumor. A marriage can't always. And that's where another name enters. A woman whose silence is a strategy, not a shrug. Whatever you think of Beyoncé, she's meticulous. The music is immaculate, the brands never miss. The photos come out exactly like they were meant to. And when the Ramier case bubbled up again, when the Leticia whispers got louder, Beyoncé didn't post a thing. No IG captions, no podcast drops, no leave my family alone statements. Nothing. To some, that looked like loyalty. To others, it looked like distance disguised as discipline. People who worked around her camp say there were quiet conversations as far back as the late 2000s. Not about gossip, about exposure, about how a legacy survives if certain test results don't go the way you expect. About what you do when your partner is stronger in the courtroom than he is in the living room. They chose the same solution that built their empire. Control the narrative by refusing to give one. But silence does more than protect a brand. It invites speculation. Fans started posting side-by-side photos of faces that looked too familiar. Threads turned into timelines. Proof became a collage. And every time the pictures resurfaced, Beyoncé's team held the line. Say nothing, reveal nothing, concede nothing. It worked. It still works. But the silence is starting to feel like a stance, not a shield. And as one household goes radio quiet, another keeps rattling with filings that won't die. Ramier Satterthwaite's federal case is a test of patience as much as paternity. He says Jay-Z's team played jurisdiction like a chess opening, claiming properties didn't exist where records said otherwise. He says the legal strategy wasn't to prove anything, it was to make him tired. Meanwhile, Letitia Murr becomes a symbol, not a witness. If she speaks, people call it clout. If she stays quiet, people call it hush. Either way, it feeds the same machine. And then there's Sean Combs, facing a sentence that turned the party house into a quiet hallway. The conversations about cooperation started the second the cell door closed. If Diddy talks, who does he take with him? Do sealed stories stay sealed? Do guest lists become exhibits? People close to the situation say there are archives, drives, names, systems, leverage. In rooms like that, no one is ever the only one who knows. That's the danger. That's the insurance. Jay-Z keeps moving like a man who reads the ending before chapter 1. New ventures, new partnerships, new silence. Beyoncé keeps the calendar full and the captions clean. Ramier keeps filing. Letitia keeps breathing. The internet keeps guessing. Which brings us to the question that never trends long but never dies either. Maybe the biggest scandal isn't who fathered whose child. Maybe it's who writes the story you get to read. Because if the friendship between Jay-Z and Sean Combs was a brotherhood, it ended like most brotherhoods do. Not with a bang, but with a door that quietly locked behind one of them. If the children in question are ever proven, the headlines will feed for weeks. If they aren't, the questions will still do the job. That's how rumor works. That's how power works. One man builds a fortress out of paperwork. The other builds a palace out of parties. The storm chooses the weaker roof. So what happens next? Maybe a lab result finally hits a clerk's desk. Maybe an old associate decides that keeping receipts pays better than staying loyal. Maybe a woman who never spoke writes a paragraph that makes everything clear, and maybe none of it matters, because the empire learned a long time ago that control isn't about truth. It's about timing. What do you think? Are we at the first crack or the final fracture? Drop your thoughts below. Keep it respectful, and if you love a deep dive into celebrity drama, hit that like, tap subscribe, and stay tuned.